Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy that you're here. Today we're going to talk about change. Not just personal change, but we're experiencing like a global transformation. All of this energy that we predicted was coming in last year, well, it's here. We live in an external world of noise right now. There's so much transformation. There's so much noise. All of this drama is floating to the surface of our lives, personally and externally. Physical ailments are intensifying or just popping up out of nowhere. Emotional dramas. Many of us are hot messes, present company included. What the heck is going on? How do we process this big, what seems to be a mess? What's going to happen? Where will our answers come from? We, my dears, are on a spiritual journey. In this epic tale of old, as our hero steps out past the threshold of their comfortable abode into new chapters of their life's journey, they leave behind life as they've known it. They step into uncertainty and peril, and once they stop kicking themselves for leaving their warm hearths, they willingly give up everything that they've loved to answer their higher calling. And we see something of ourselves in those heroes and their epic sagas. It's why we're drawn to them, why we root for them, why we celebrate their successes and cry for their losses, why we celebrate their triumph over evil. We too, friends, are on an epic journey. We know this, and deep down inside, we have an ingrained understanding that we will leave much behind. It's just when it happens, well, that's a little bit of a different story. So today, as we experience disturbing world events, so much turmoil and heartbreaking tragedy in such a short amount of time, on top of everything that's occurring in our personal lives, we become so hyper-focused on the fear of everything we could lose, the fear of everything getting worse. It's easy to lose sight of the beauty of hope, the perseverance that's defined our lives to this point. I say it all the time. You have a 100% survival rate for everything that's ever happened to you. Right now, the most important thing for us to do is to find our moments of quiet and reflection. It's imperative. We are on a spiritual journey, and on a spiritual journey, we give up things. What are your emotional priorities right now? What are you willing to let go of in order to feel the alignment of your spirit to its purpose? What will change in our lives look like? Understanding that change is a lifelong experience is so important. Understand that these new feelings of uncertainty that we're feeling right now, others have always felt. Change is always with us, yet it's the hardest thing to hold space with in our lives. A deep survival mode inside of us resists change. We push back on things changing, even when we need change, when we need transformation to get us out of unhealthy places and mindsets. The human brain will grasp the familiar over the unknown that change ushers in almost every single time, because change is not simply a word. It's a wave of emotional and physical activity, and it requires us to act, to be proactive. It brings realities, disappointments, illusions, beliefs, and unhealthy attachments to the surface, forcing us to view them, own them, and then let them go. that can be very unpleasant. I mean, in almost every hero's journey, when they first hear the call, the answer is no. When we hear the term, you create your own reality, we typically hear it as an admonition that our current situation is all of our making. The act of creation externally is much more complex than that, though. Collectively, our brains perceive and then interpret through our languages, our cultures, our perceptions, and our personal experiences. It's that reality, so-called, that we energize out into the world. We create societies like this, laws, borders, based upon our personal interpretations of the lives that we're experiencing. Those structures benefit some people, but they have never benefited others. And as we evolve as a species, if the structures we have created do not change as well, we see what's happening around us. So, our reality is a combination of outside events and inside interpretations. Reality itself is static, but our experience of it changes depending on our perceptions and interpretations. And in much the same way, our individuated lives are formed in similar fashion. Our thoughts are so powerful. And some people are gifted with just creating what they want. The rest of us struggle with that. Boy, do we struggle. And for us, manifesting is hard work. But that doesn't have to be a reality or a truth. It's just a statement of what has been the case to this point. But if you don't like something, change it. That's great advice in theory, but understanding our manifesting abilities is much deeper and way more complicated than just those words. So we begin by working on the soul. The human soul, the spirit, is related to the universal oneness of the divine, the life force that permeates and animates everything. Life is the largest manifestation of a system that replicates itself in smaller and smaller versions through a process that empowers the system itself to exist and expand. Through our soul, at the unconscious level, our unity with all life can be perceived. The soul has access to cosmic eternal information and wisdom. So while this society, the mind stops at apparent truth of that which we can see, touch, or prove. But our experienced reality is not all there is. That is an illusion. So by going within to the level of the soul, we can check that our perspective is sound, and therefore our reality won't be distorted. This can be achieved easily through stillness and meditation. And there are many ways to meditate. Meditation isn't about emptying your mind of all thoughts, but it's about focusing on something. Whether it's a word or a tree or an object, just sitting still or being still. I've been nagging people about this for a few years now, but the purpose of meditation and prayer and silent contemplation is to put us in a space in this chaotic transformation, to be still and to listen to those sources within us, waiting there to guide us, to advise us, and to answer our innermost questions. Our truths, apparent or imagined, come from past data of our lives. but we still choose what data to look at. Judged past data viewed through the emotions that accompanied the past event, or factual past data, simply the event without the emotion component of it. So if no past data for the present event is found, the mind consults the cellular memory instinct, which stores the history of our experiences, of our biological line, ultimately humanity. Noticing the moment is a tool that helps to change our perspective and inner truth by focusing on the now and realizing that then and tomorrow are different. We can teach the mind to focus on the present moment without adding to it. Like the times I've been hurt in the past, do not push my present experience out of the way and respond from a place of trauma. My fear that what happened in the past will also happen in the future, that doesn't step in to cause me to be afraid of change or decisions that are for my highest good. This then becomes like the apparent rather than imagined truth. And that in turn leads to a new emotion and experience based on observed reality rather than the distorted reality that we create. More often than we realize, we find ourselves on plateaus on which we're not really functioning at all. We're not happy. We don't see a way out. We're existing rather than experiencing our lives. And at the mind's level, an event produces our reality, like I said, whether it's observed or distorted. And when we sidestep the mind and enter the realm of the soul, pure awareness produces our reality. We perceive actual truth, and through it, ultimate reality, including the truth about change. When viewed within the context of our life experience, change is not a disruption, but rather the flow of life, an eruption of life into fuller bloom. Life is movement, and movement is change. Therefore, life by its very nature and design is change. And without it, life would cease. Change is the ultimate expression of divinity sustaining itself through adaptations. It's the fundamental impulse of life itself. Life's energy always moves towards synergy and harmony and beautiful expression and expansion. It seeks an experience of itself in fullness and moves in the direction of love. So when we find ourselves on life's landing places, based on limited choices or fears, or decisions not based on faith in ourselves or our own processes, change will prompt us onwards. You know it's true. Whether we feel like we're ready or not, and if everything is sunshine and roses, the same thing will happen, urging us toward more expansiveness, toward the divine supreme soul intelligence that resides within each of us. That's the good thing, right? Nothing stays the same. Whether you're in a beautiful season of your life or whether you're in a challenging season of your life, you can be sure that change is coming. So the soul is the energy of self-animating life. Through a system, it sustains itself by constantly adapting so that it forever remains functional. The energy of life continually transforms itself, and so life is always in formation through change. And change is a process through which life meets its purpose, by which we meet our purpose. Remember, change is initiated by our soul in response to something being out of harmony. The improvement change brings isn't always on the outside, often it's on the inside, contributing to the evolution of our spirit, of our soul. So that we might not even know that we've changed until the very same thing that has been happening to us reappears and we choose a different outcome. That's a small example where we stop and we go, oh, hey, that's so cool. But life's energy always moves towards synergy, harmony, and expression. Even through our travails and tragedies, even things take place that grieve us. At the soul level, no aspect of divinity can be damaged or hurt. Outward manifestation is part of the inward journey of all entities and cannot be understood now on a really deep level because of our limited human experience. There are things that we feel inside, things that we know inside, we can't necessarily put our finger on. But one day, when the perspective changes, those things will be understood. You know, it's like looking back at the experiences you've suffered through. And at the time thought, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. My life will never be the same. My life is ruined. I will never get over this. But with time and distance and adaptation, you now view those experiences as great learning that you've experienced. Some people say, that thing I thought was terrible is the best thing that ever happened to me. So, our idea about tomorrow is shaped by our memories of our yesterdays and our perspective today and our fears and doubts about tomorrow or our current reality. If we realize that what has happened in the past was for the better and believe, even against apparent odds, that every change happens to sustain harmony in the universe, we can expect positive outcomes from future changes. Now, I'm not talking about everything here, because some things that have happened to us should not have happened to us. And yes, we might take a lesson from a trauma, but that lesson is available to us without trauma. And it's important to seek that, seek lessons that don't cause us to experience trauma as we move forward in our lives. We can't do anything about what's happened to us, but we can change the way we deal with the things that happen to us from this point onward. And then we understand that the future isn't coming to us, but it's formed through us, through our thoughts, through our words and actions. It's not about a false positivity. It's about adaptability and our understanding that even though things are unpleasant right now, we won't always feel like this. We won't always be in this place. And if we stop resisting what we dislike, because what we resist persists, we'll start seeing more actual truth rather than apparent truth or the illusory dialogue that we communicate with ourselves in. That dialogue that tells us we're not good enough. There's something wrong with us. And that actually informs how we create our reality. Being mindful of the thoughts that come into our head and not wearing those around. We're in control over what we think. We are the thinker of our thoughts, and as such we are empowered to change those thoughts that are more in alignment with the beautiful spirit that resides inside of us. That doesn't speak to us about our deficits, but works to heal those deficits and speaks to us about our potential and the beautiful aspects that we overlook about ourselves. And with a change of view, options open and enable us to move through, even the seemingly negative situations that we find ourselves in. Life is not just a series of lived experiences to learn from. If we learn to listen to our soul, which is our connection with the one divine light, our perception that life was meant to be a struggle, it was meant to be hard. People don't understand us. People will hurt us. Men are like this, women are like that. People of color are the other. Poor people should work harder. Rich people should work less or harder, wherever you stand on that. Everything that compartmentalizes and others people. If we quiet our minds and tune in to our inner selves, our soul, we become aware of the divine life force within. And this is accomplished through prayer, through meditation, mindfulness exercises, which focus the mind away from itself and into a deeper understanding of who we are. So, meditation is uniting these human bodies with the eternal transformational divine. The spiritual connection does not have to be fully understood or even fully actualized. It only needs to be experienced. We experience it by doing it. This humanness that we possess requires an integration when we enter into this dimension. Pure spirit must lower its vibration in order to come here. And at birth, we become a combination of body, mind, and soul, yet greater than the sum of these. In our essence, we're pure energy, pure spirit. Physicality, in a sense, is illusory, and it's not who or what we are. We've been programmed by this society that inhibits our ability to retain the higher consciousness we brought here with us. All of our collective creations reflect the decisions of our species to learn through fear and doubt. We are conditioned into a false reality that defines how we should look, how we should behave, that tells us who we should love, how we should love, who we should dislike and why, that tells us what we should believe. And when we know with the intuitive source that resides within us that this isn't right, it causes a distortion. We can feel it. It's the source of all of our struggles and most of the world's struggles. Every society, by offering its automatic roles and judgments, limits the vision of its members, oftentimes assuring they never awake. From our earliest years, we're seduced into a system of beliefs that becomes so braided into our experiences that we can't tell culture from nature, our true beliefs from the beliefs we've been indoctrinated into. No wonder we're collectively suffering. Of course, we're not taught how to access our inner divinity, and in fact taught that our practices are not of God. We're taught not to read, believe, or practice anything other than organized religions' teachings, what they've deemed appropriate for us. Even as they perpetuate acts of evil against innocent people, we have to follow them? Or we're the bad ones? Our society must begin to encourage us to seek inner truth from this perfectible human illusion. We, as individual parts of the whole must begin by looking at the objects, people, and events in our lives and saying, "You are sacred. In you and with you, I can find the transcendental passages that reconnect us to the wholeness of creation." It is then to us to ask ourselves, what kind of culture, what kind of institutions, be they personal, political, economic, artistic, educational, scientific, we need that can honor that universal sacredness. Our body is the physical manifestation of spirit in a particular form, in a particular time, for a particular purpose. Through this individuation, experience is enabled. Our mind creates our physical reality, but we may or may not be consciously aware of that process. But our minds can be trained to bypass the past data. It's designed to do it that way, and make a quantum leap into the awareness of the soul. And the soul can be reached by tapping into the frequency rate of the invisible where the soul operates. And this is the place, this is where the universal law of attraction then draws more equanimity and harmony into our life. So all things depend on our perception, the things we think, why we think them, our beliefs, why we believe them, and really discarding that which doesn't serve our highest good. Because our perspective can be created and it can be changed. Understanding that being part of life, we are an individuated part of the divine, knowing the spirit realm where all exists in absolute form without differentiating into dimensions of time and size and gender and value. There is only the now. There is only light and love. Anything that keeps us from acknowledging that and actuating it is an illusion. In this life, this physical realm, we experience who we really are, and we can choose to recreate our identity based on the vision we have for life. And that's a continual process of recreating the self. The recreation of the self occurs in 3 steps: choosing, knowing, and then experiencing. Experience is impossible without knowledge, and knowledge is impossible without choosing to know. And the beautiful thing about these human adaptable bodies is that the choices that we've made based on limited experience, limited data, fear, doubt, those can be changed. We can just choose differently. So as we evolve in our life, we choose better when we know better. Can you imagine if we weren't able to change? Oh my goodness gracious. We'd all be stuck because we've all been, we've all been low vibing at some point in our lives or another. And we're going to again. But knowledge is power, and it gives us the ability to take ourselves from where we don't want to be. Even those of us who are fearful of change, both the expected and the unexpected, that we need to experience in order to live life with greater freedom and happiness. Like, the acorn that has to cease to exist as it was in order to be reborn as an oak tree. We are all in the midst of being transformed. And with that transformation, we become more compassionate, more caring, people who offer our unique gifts in the service of the larger whole, which is one of the reasons that we came here. So change offers us the possibility of growing beyond our perceived limitations to the fullness of our divine potential. So if you're in the midst of an unwanted change, rather than thinking of yourself as an unwilling victim, think of yourself as an initiate into the journey of your soul. And that will bring you solace as well as wisdom as you move through that process. You, beloved, are as a hero of old, and your journey is just beginning. The only constant will be that change for you will be an invitation to actualize the wisdom and compassion that make you both fully human and evident manifestations of the pure divine. Life, after all, is a journey into the unknown, where every new moment is open and pliable and receptive until it becomes the past. In our human freedom, we have input, we have significance, we have power to direct outcomes. We're part of a whole universal infused innate freedom pact, which means that even influencers like cancer cells and tyrants have input. If something bad happens to you in this world, it doesn't mean that you asked for it, because there's a collective that we live in. But the divine has input also. Always, in every fresh becoming moment, the light resides there with us. It holds space with us in our sufferings and our joys, in our confusions and in our passions for a better world. That is so beautiful. So I hope that was helpful. I wish you love, I wish you light, and a beautiful day.